We're a little after 7 o'clock, so we'll get started. Steve is out of town wrangling, I don't know how many 10 to 14-year-old boys at Future Preacher Training Camp, so you get stuck with me tonight. I'm going to try to, I got instructions on the way down here, don't drag it out too long, but I want to keep it where it's worth your time. We just got back in from the Dallas area this afternoon, so we're going to give out as well. I think Steve said last month, that the topic tonight was going to be fall feeding. I called an audible. We're going to do hive pests, which is what was supposed to be next month, because originally our field day this month was supposed to be dealing with hive pests. We've had numerous hive count tests over the last few field days that we've had, so we're not 100% sure what's going to happen on that this month. Upcoming events, originally, again, we're calling some audibles for some scheduling conflicts. Originally, the field day was supposed to be this Saturday, the 6th. However, Steve won't get back into town until after midnight tomorrow night, hopefully. I'm on duty at the fire department this weekend, so we're going to push it back a week. But there's a chance that it may have to get canceled altogether. Next Saturday, the 13th, I'm on duty at the fire department as well. Steve and Jenny's daughter is due the end of the month with Steve and Jenny's third grandchild. But if they get a call that she's going into labor, of course they're out the door headed to Louisville, Texas. Brad's in Thailand for I think until the 21st, so he's out. Jamie said she didn't want to run a field day. Kevin may want to. No, I'm getting a no from Kevin. Okay. And I don't see, well, JR's not here to defend himself, so we can say JR's going to run the field day. Huh?
He's elected.
He's elected. That's our next meeting after tonight, next monthly meeting will be September 1st, and that one will be fall feeding. On October 1st, we'll have a field day. The topic is fondant and winter candy boards for feeding our bees through the winter. And then that month's meeting, the 6th, will be on winter prep. November 3rd, we'll have our another meeting, which is officer elections, and just have a Q&A session after that. A little bit of a change from previous years. That is usually in October, our officer elections. But we're going to try something different this year with our elections and our meetings. We've always had November as our potluck, and then not having a meeting in December. But we're going to try to just have a potluck in December. That way we get 11 full meetings in instead of 10 in a potluck. We get 11. And so December 1st will be our potluck. So that's the remainder of the year for our club. We do have a few guest speakers tonight's got some things they want to announce to us. So first off, we have a lady here from the Joplin area beekeepers that wants to talk to us about their upcoming conference, which from what I've seen, it looks like it's going to be a really, really good conference. And I know Steve and I are talking about going, and so, you know, I would recommend it. The speakers that they've got, I would recommend it to everybody. So, wait.
My name is Tangles, and I am from the Joplin Club, and I'm jealous for all of you in Dallas, which is my hometown. So, I did bring flyers. This will be November the 12th, and it's an all-day conference. And it will be held at, in Joplin at the university up there, whatever it is. It's not the University of Texas, although I really know. It's Missouri Southern State University, I think that's what it's called. And there's directions. We have this on our webpage, but I did bring some flyers for you guys. It's $45 for each person. That includes a continental breakfast and lunch. Runs from 8:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And hopefully those of you that go deer hunting, deer season opens that day. So I was told last night. Maybe you can put off that a day. Let baby live a little longer. I love the fact that you've got kids here. It's great. Wonderful. Anyway, our speakers are Cayman Reynolds, Katie Kilmer, who's Dr. Kilmer. She's at the college. She's one of the professors at the college. Randy Oliver will be there in Zoom. He's always good. And Alicia Plush. She does. She's an herbalist from Kansas. So we'll have vendors, quite a few vendors, and just a bunch of junk stuff. The topics will be Cayman Reynolds will be talking about fine-tuning mite control and feeding for better bees. Katie will be talking about bee biology, and she's a doctor, and she talks way up here. I don't understand half of what she's saying. She even knows how to pronounce all the big words, you know. But if you guys know that, that'd be good. She is interesting. Cayman will also be discussing successful and simple queen rearing. Randy will be, we don't know what he's going to talk about. It's whatever he's doing now. This one, Randy Oliver makes the whole conference the best thing to go, and it's worth the $45 just to hear him. And all the rest is just plus. Lisa will be talking about medicines from the hive, and then Dale Foley, who you guys may know, who's our founder, and Cayman will be doing question and answering. Any questions? Anything you want to ask? Continental breakfast is okay. The luncheon is usually pretty good. I like food.
Which continent is it from?
I'm sorry?
Which continent is it from?
Continental breakfast. I don't know what. That's continental breakfast. You know, it's like what you get at the hotels when you spend the night. Probably donuts and or bagels or something. I don't know. Anyway, there'll be quite a few vendors. It's easy to get to. We have a website, the Joplin Area Beekeepers Association.com, and there are directions on how to get to the conference at the school. It'll be in the student center up on the 3rd floor, and there's an elevator to get there. Anything else? Can I answer any questions? We'd love to have you come, especially the kids. Of course, I like kids. Yeah. You know what you do.
Okay.
And
Actually, I'll tell you what, if you want to give them to Jamie back there at the
Okay.
table, she can sit
Okay.
back there on the table.
Great, great. Thank you. We look forward to seeing some of you there. All of you there.
Hi, good evening. I'm Brenda Anderson, and I brought another vice president from the Benton County Master Gardeners, Debbie Bodner. I come with two items for your agenda. One, you know, the county fair is coming up. It's at the end of September into October. And as Master Gardeners, we sponsor the entrance for the horticulture, floriculture, agronomy, the beekeeping, what is it, apiary? Thank you. Entomology. Anyway, there's several categories. So I suggested to our committee that maybe we approach the different beekeeping associations or associations associated with all of our categories. So that's why I'm here tonight. We were just wondering if you guys would be interested in having an award to the entrants that may be participating or the winners of that category. I think last year they had maybe 3 jars of honey that were entered. So you never know who's going to enter or what will be entered. But I thought, well, if you guys could help out, and as far as the award, it depends on what you want to do. Usually it's a little gift card, plus we do give ribbons and stuff like that. But I don't know, depending on if it's a youth or an adult, you might want to do a membership or a supply of some sort, or who knows. That's kind of up to you. Do you mention my second request? The second thing is, as master gardeners, we're busy in the garden, whether it's flowers or veggies. So we're all planting native nowadays, and that, of course, brings in all of our beautiful pollinators that we all love. So there's probably at least a dozen of us, and we've got almost 150 in our membership here in Benton County, which, you know, covers a wide range area. I think we could, as far as master gardeners, I think I could help you place a dozen hives throughout the county where we're located. I'd be willing to drive you to different locations so you can physically see our setup, or if it would be worthy of sponsoring baby bees and honey collectors. So that's what we're looking at. We're wanting huge picture hives on our property. We can help as much as we can, but we really don't want to be involved in the ownership or maintenance or harvesting of the hives. So that's my two items. Thank you.
And Mr. Roy.
Thank you, sir.
Hi guys, I'm Roy Duncan. I'm the Northwest Arkansas Regional Director for the Arkansas Beekeepers Association. This is a statewide club, okay? And we hold a fall conference every year. And this year, our conference is going to be the last weekend in September, over in Mountain View, Arkansas, at the Folk Center. So if you haven't ever been there, it's a good place to go. Going to have a lot of folk music, a lot of stuff going on around there too. And we're going to have our conference at the Folk Center. We've got a couple of speakers coming. Oh, and by the way, the biggest change that you're going to see this year is that the Arkansas Beekeepers Association, instead of being really focused toward the professional guys, the big guys who send the hives off to California, wherever, to do the pollinating. What we're doing now is we're making a transition, and we are now going to be focused more on the hobby guys, the ones with less than 50 hives, 100 hives, whatever, okay? Like mine, I had a tough winter, and you guys probably did too. I had a real strange spring, but I came out of the whole thing with 6 hives. So I'm way down from what I had before. But this is what we're going to be focusing on. We've got one of the speakers is Cayman Reynolds from Tennessee. I don't know if you guys know the name Cayman Reynolds. You can look him up on the web. Real good with just how we do stuff. And then there's Tina, and I'm going to mispronounce her name, Sebastian from Colorado. Now she's got, drier climates out there than we've got here, but there's a lot of things that they do out there that we can bring here. Going to talk about feeding, going to talk about how you work the hives, things that we need to know as we work and we see what's going on in our hives. Give us a clue what's going on, okay? So if you will, the date to put on your calendar is the last weekend in September. And I put my calendar
That's
there.
a Friday, Saturday, not a Saturday, Sunday.
That's right. It is a Friday, Saturday, because people like to get home and relax on a Sunday before they have to go back to work, okay? And it starts at 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Registration actually opens at 8 o'clock, okay? You can get reservations over there in Mountain View, Arkansas. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be all day Friday. And what we're going to do this year is halfway through Saturday, we're going to cut it off. What they have done in the past is they've been going to all day Saturday. Well, a lot of people just don't want to stick around on Saturday and then drive home late. So we're trying to focus back on the everyday beekeeper, the hobby beekeepers, instead of the big professional guys, okay? So keep that in mind. If it's something, go on our Facebook page. You'll be able to read the bios, see what our agenda is, that kind of thing. So just food for thought. Save the date, Okay?
All day Friday and half day Saturday.
All day Friday and half day Saturday. Okay? Yes?
Is that the 23rd and 24th, the
Yes.
last full
Yes.
weekend, or is it the 30th and October 1st?
No, it's the
23rd,
23rd and the 24th.
What's the name?
It's Arkansas Beekeepers Association. It's a big statewide group.
It's the state bee conference, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. This is our fall conference. So we used to have two of them. We've knocked it down to one because people are really busy in the spring, okay, with our hives and everything. Any questions? Okay, if something comes up, I'll be here.
Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Roy. So like I was saying, our topic tonight, honeybee pests. I'm gonna try to keep this as skimming the surface as possible. I'm gonna give you some links to some resources where you can go dig deeper on it for your own. We could be here all night, if not, going through stuff. Kind of want to start out. When I say outside the hive, it's not necessarily, some of these aren't outside the hive pests. They're like the first one, ants. They're in the hive, but they're not after the bees and such. They're more after the sweet honey, a place, a sheltered place to have their colony. I've been doing this since 2016. I've had a Langsford hive that had probably half that amount of bees on an inner cover one time. Ants aren't really a problem for the bees. They're a problem for the beekeeper. They're more of an annoyance to us than they are to the bees. The bees will kind of keep them corralled. Now, my top bar hive, I've had it look almost that bad before. For whatever reason, they can get up there. Of course, all the top bars are sealed. The bees can't get up there to harass them, and they love it up there. Almost to the point where I wanted to go take a leaf blower out there when I opened my top bar hive and have to blow off the top of the hive to get the ants off of it before I can start working my bees, or else I've got stuff crawling on me the rest of the day, and it's just. What are some solutions for ants? I found this on the internet. It's this nails up into the bottom of your hive stand leg. Fill this with oil of some sort, like vegetable oil or something like that, and it acts as a moat. And then this is like a rain shield to keep the rain from rinsing the oil out. The ants can't cross the oil. Some say that they can. The unfortunate ones that try it, that drown, if they build enough of them build up, they'll use the bodies of their buddies as a bridge, and after so long they can get out and get across it. Another similar to this that I saw just the other day, and I meant to get a picture of it and put in here and I didn't. It's somebody that had 8 frame equipment. They had that was on a metal hive stand, so you had metal legs already, and they had a cookie sheet. Set it in a cookie sheet and filled it full of water, and then they just used water, and they put some rocks and stuff under it, so if a bee happened to land in it, they could get out. I thought that was pretty cool. You could probably do it with 10 frame if you find the cookie sheet big enough, or use a couple of cookie sheets. Another option is tanglefoot. This is a real sticky resin comes from, I'm not sure what tree, but you go in and you paint it a 3 or 4 inch band around your hive stand legs, and they can't cross it. There again, just like with the oil, one gets on it, gets stuck, then the next one may walk on it and get up there and get stuck, and they may eventually build a bridge across it, but you may have to keep an eye on it. I've also been told that ants do not like cinnamon. You can sprinkle cinnamon around your hives. diatomaceous earth. You put diatomaceous earth around your hive. Only the problem with that, if a bee gets down there in it, it's going to kill the bee as well. And with both cinnamon and diatomaceous earth, after a rain, you have to reapply it. Mice. Coming out of winter, first nice warm day of late winter, early spring, you want to get in and check your bees, make sure they made it through the winter. You get down into the bottom box, and that's what you find. Mouse nest. Mice looking for a nice warm, dry place for the winter as well. Knock on wood, I've not found a mouse nest in my hives yet. I don't know if I've got them up high enough off the ground. They don't mess with them or what. Might also find this. I know it's a little hard to see. There's a tail, a hind leg, a few ribs, front leg. It's covered in propolis. The bees, whether they stung it to death or it just died in there, and then they'll propolize that carcass to seal it up where anything from it can't get into the hive. Few options for controlling mice. They make commercial mouse guards, put on the front of your hives. I'm not 100% sure on the size of those holes. Obviously, for the winter, you can still have your entrance reducer behind that, and then put that in front of it. A lot of people make their own. That's a 5-frame nuke box. That is 1/4-inch hardware cloth. And so bees aren't supposed to, the bees can go through it, but mice can't. And there again, you can see they just have this end over here open for an entrance. The rest of it's sealed off. Skunks. This one, if you will, I've got a short video from Frederick Dunn. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Frederick Dunn on YouTube. He's beekeeper, has a lot of good information on there. He went out to set out a trail cam to try to catch a skunk, and when he went out with it, there was a skunk at his hives. So he just sat there in his bee yard with a trail cam, and I skipped the first couple of minutes of it because there wasn't much until he actually got into the skunk where it was.
This is a behavior of one of the ones that touches really quick. The response to the bees is to zoom out, and then they land on the grass, picking up and down. They don't have very good eyesight, except for things that are very close. Look at me scratching at the bottom of the colony, which vibrates it. And then you see the response on the land before the air bees come out. And the bees are at a big disadvantage here. But, because when they fly out, they're used away. If you were in the bee yard, as I am here, and use a white flashlight, you're a target. The gardeners are going to go straight at whoever's holding the white flashlight. You're going to be stung, there's no question about it, just you can walk them through at night with a white light. But a red flashlight, you can sit right there and observe everything. You don't seem to even know that you're there. Unless I made a noise, this skunk is clueless that I'm here, so focused on the food. What should you do about the skunk? Trap him? Shoot him? I'm saying no. And that's because the number of bees that is actually dead is not very high. The skunk is coaxing the bees out of there, but I notice he's getting one about every 10 or 15 seconds here. And the entire duration, from start to finish of his visit to the beehive, is about 10 minutes. So he's not wholesale eating mouthfuls of bees. He's getting them one at a time, and he's getting the guards to fly out. He's still got one in his tail there. And so it's not like he's not as devastating as a bunch of hornets or wasps attacking the colony, for example. Then he backs up, waits for one to land in the grass, and he runs up against it. Now sometimes I notice he's rolling the bees with his paws. At other times, he gets them on the way to grab them, he chooses to trade. He doesn't roll them around or kill them first. And he chews them right off with his fur and shoot them up and swallow them. So he's eating live bees. here goes one, didn't get it. And that one rolls around a little bit and then eats right away. Now, because I'm hand holding the trophy catch, normally would be static mounted. We're getting lots of sequence. It's got to be right there.
Yeah, it's not on there.
Just hold that, gets it on the ground, keeps it right away. See him chilling? So he didn't roll it first. He didn't turn it first. Let's turn this off. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Everybody's got a skunk, H.O. in-ground yellow jacket, and you're our friend overall. This is beneficial. Did that from that. Thanks a lot.
If you still want to try to keep skunks away from your hive, this is one option. It's hard to see because it's covered in snow, but they've got a board there in front of the hive on the ground with tacks, nails up through it, to keep them from stepping on it. Makes it kind of tough for them to step on. Another option is to use a top entrance. You seal off the bottom entrance and the bees go in and out the top. This one is simply just a simple migratory cover. They put a couple of shims on each side, and of course it comes out, they come out the side on this one. I don't know that makes a difference to the bees. Which way they come in and out of the hive regards to the hive the frame orientation. This one is on the front, and it's just simply a 3/4 sheet of plywood, again with some shims on each side, some tapered shims so the back sets flat. The front side there is open. One thing I would do with this one possibly, if this was mine, I would have that extend out probably another 3/4 inch to an inch for a rain shield. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a microphone, because somebody online says speak louder or speak into the microphone?
Well,
I don't know where the microphone would be in the camera, right?
yeah, there's a microphone in the camera. Yeah, I know. I think as long as I turn the mic on first.
Test.
He's normally our tech guy, not the speaker, so it's nice having to do all three.
All right, maybe they can hear it better online now. Like I was saying with this, if this was mine, I was doing this, I would extend that out for a little bit better of a rain shield over that entrance. As you see bush on the side, I got this picture from Michael Bush's website. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Michael Bush or not. He says, that's all he does is runs top entrances. And another added benefit to this is if your hives aren't in your yard, if they're out somewhere where you're having to mow around them all the time, but you don't have to mow around them all the time. As your hives get taller, they get taller as the grass gets taller, so you don't have to keep the entrance down at the bottom of the hive as clean, or around it, I should say, but you don't have to mow as often. As you add a box, you add this box, you're gonna confuse the bees for a day or so, because they're used to going in here, and it'll take them a day or so to learn, oh, well, I gotta go up here and go back in. But that was skunks. Bears. How did all of us learn about bears and honey? Learning to food, right? That's kind of misleading. While they do like the honey, that's not the main thing they're after. That's what a bee yard looks like after a bear gets in it. There's 1, 2, 3 hives they've got, at least in this picture. There's still, as you see, there's still a few bees hanging out on that frame. It's a little tougher to see on here than it is on the computer. Say that happened last night, you come in today, you set it all back up, try to save what you got. If you don't do anything else, bear's gonna be right back tonight. It knows that's where you can get some food, it's coming right back. They're mainly after the brood. They want the protein more than they do the carbs of the honey. There's another one. There's a high bottom, high bottom, high bottom, high bottom. You either package them all back up the best you can and you move them to another yard, since the bear knows where they're at, or again, something's hard to see on the screen. Electric fence. That's the best way. If you have bears, a lot of people say, well, we don't have them here. Brad was telling us several months back, I don't know if it were his hives or a friend of his hives, somewhere between Pea Ridge and Gateway on the north side of the military park, had bears get in it.
That's what we did.
And, yeah.
We did.
We just tied it down to the cement,
Oh.
and we could hear the bear trying to get them to do it.
Trying to rock it open.
Yeah, couldn't do it.
But it wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as they know they get a free meal there, that's where they're gonna, they'll come back to it.
You can get them
Electric fence, at least 3.5 feet up, multiple strand. What I was reading said you want your first strand no more than 8 inches off the ground and no more than 8 inches between strands. So those are insulators, so you see 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 6, I got 6 strands around that. You need a charger, fence charger, at least 4,000 to 5,000 volts to get their attention. It also suggested taking 2 or 3 foot strip of chicken wire or hardware cloth, laying it on the ground on the outside. So he or she's standing on metal to make sure it's grounded good when it hits the fence, to make sure it gets a good jolt. And also suggested taking a strip of bacon and wrapping it around the wire to, bear's gonna be smart, just like a dog. You put electric fence up in a yard for a dog, it gets hit a time or two, it learns its lesson. Same thing for the bears. They realize they're gonna get zapped, they'll leave it alone. And also, you want to leave at least 3 foot of space between your hives and the fence, so they can't reach in and swat at it.
How did you get in?
Well, they have, on that side where those posts are, they've got disconnectors where you can undo the fence and get in. Well, that's bears. Now I'm moving in more into pests and parasites in the hive. Wax moths. We have 2 different versions. The greater wax moth, up to 3/4 inches long. The lesser wax moth, it's only up to about a 1/2 inch long. A little different color. One, it's more gray. The other one's kind of darker, more, for lack of a better term, camouflage color. That's the real enemy of the wax moths. That's the wax moth larva. It's the one that does all the damage in the hive. If you start seeing some silk in your hive and these black specks, that's waxworm poop. And of course the worm spins the silk as it's going through you can see here on this one. And if you see a frame like that one's not bad. You can take that frame, freeze it for a few days, kill all the larvae and all the wax moth larvae and the eggs on it, stick it back in the hive. The bees will clean that up. Obviously the best for wax moths is a good strong hive. The bees will keep the wax moths out of it. But you only want enough frames in your hive that the bees can cover. If you've got enough bees to cover 30 frames, if you got 5 boxes in there with 50 frames, then that's an open invitation to get some wax moths in the hive. That one's not bad. Left unchecked, that's what it'll end up looking like. This was wax foundation, or it was just plain foundationless with wires running through it that the bees built their wax on. If you got plastic foundation, you're going to just scrape the foundation clean, get it good and clean, and then they'll have to build back on it. This one right here is, you're just going to have to cut all that out, scrape any worm poop, whatever's on it, clean it up, and let the bees again begin. You notice, like right there, right there, right there are some white things like that. That's the cocoons. That's where the moth is, or the larva spun its cocoon to turn into a moth. And what it does, that woodenware, they even do it in plastic, but they go in and they burrow out a groove, and then they spin their cocoon in that. So not only are they destroying your wax, they're damaging your woodenware as well. I've got a box that I had that happen to. I thought I had it sealed up good enough, but it was in storage in the garage to keep the moths out of it, but they got in there to it, and before I realized it, there wasn't a bit of wax left in it, and there was probably 100 of those on one box where they had grooved out. And stored boxes and frames, you want to, the moths don't like light, so you can keep them where they get some light in them. Air moving, they don't like that. If you are storing them over the winter, if you can freeze them, you want to freeze them for a couple of days. Again, it kills any wax moth larvae or wax moth eggs. There's an option you can do. Paramoth is the crystal. It's a crystal. You don't use mothballs. Regular mothballs are naphthalene, I believe is the chemical in mothballs, and that's harmful to bees. Paramoth is, hold on, I looked it up just a second ago. If I don't read it, I can't pronounce it. Paradichlorobenzene is the active ingredient in Paramoth. It says to stack up, you want to stack up to 5 deeps or 7 mediums, put a paper plate on top, put you about 2 tablespoons of Paramoth crystals in there, put your lid on it, seal it up really good. The vapors are heavier than air, so they're going to come off that paper plate and they're going to go down through the boxes, and that will keep your wax moths out. If you use them, when you get ready to put your boxes, use your boxes again, you want to set them out for a couple of days and let them air out. While it's not harmful to the bees, the smell, the bees may not like the smell too good, so we want to let them air out before we reuse them. If any of you watched the videos after Steve talked about Dick Brittner over in Tennessee back in the spring, I noticed when I was watching one of his videos, he stores his boxes and everything outside. He's got basically a hive stand, and he said he has a ring made for like the box, the size of the box, and he puts window screen on it, and then sets his boxes on that, and puts one on top, and then the way he taught, that's all he does. I probably, if it was me and doing that, I would still go around with like painter's tape or something around all the seams and try to seal them up. But and he puts a cover on top so rain doesn't get down in them. But he leaves his outside stored like that, and he says he doesn't have wax moths. Something I've also thought about and had never tried, but I don't know why it wouldn't work unless it bothered the bees as well. Putting a bug zapper out in the bee yard. Moths are out at night. Let's see if the bug zapper will get them. I don't know if the bees, if it would attract the bees as well out of the hive at night, but small hive beetles. Probably more of a problem than wax moths. in our hives. There's actually large hive beetles as well. Luckily, we don't have them around here. But there's the size you can see. If you haven't seen a small hive beetle yet, there's your size comparison to your bees and a small hive beetle. Again, it's the larva form that gives us fits. It's going to chew through mainly, again, like the bears, it's looking for the brood and the protein. It's going to chew through the wax and looking for in the brood, eating. Life cycle, it's going to, if I remember correctly, the larva stage is 5 to 7 days. After it hatches, it's going to, and it's feeding during that time, then it's going to find its way out of the hive, drop down into the ground, burrow down. So we use nematodes. We did the nematode order this spring. It's going to pupate in the ground for, I think it was right at 3 weeks. Then it's going to emerge in the beetle form and find a hive. They say they've got a really good smell. That's how they find the hive, is by smell. And then start the process over again. If left unchecked, just like the old Ghostbusters movie, you get the hive gets lined. There's if I remember correctly, there's an enzyme that the larva produces in the honey that causes the honey to ferment, and it just turns into a slimy mess. We've got beetle blaster traps we can put in to catch the beetles. There's another version of that hangs over the frame. This one actually has in the middle right here, you can bait it. One of the things I saw was using apple cider vinegar. You put a little apple cider vinegar in there and it'll attract the beetles to it. Instead of the bees just having to run them off around the beetle blaster and hope they fall in. This oil, or I use diatomaceous earth in mine, that way I don't have to worry about the oil going rancid. And so they fall in there and get in the diatomaceous earth and it cuts them up and kills them. Same thing with this, you can use either or in that one. Freeman beetle trap, that's looking at the back side of it. It's a bottom board, screen bottom board with a tray. Put your oil in there. As they fall through the screen into that, they drown. I know a lot of people that use those and had really good luck with them, success. Another option I didn't put up here, but I've seen online, take an old 4 flask election sign, cut it about 4 by 6 or so, or 4 by 4 size, take Crisco and seal one side of it up, turn it up on the other side, put borax in it, and then put Crisco on that side, and then staple it. If you have a solid bottom board, staple it to your solid bottom board. The small hive beetles will eat through the Crisco, get into the borax, and it'll kill them. And then the bees can't get in through the chloroplast sign. Swiffer's sheets. I've tried it once or twice. I've never had that much luck. Either they have a really good success with catching them, or they got a really bad hive beetle problem. The couple of times I did it, I ended up catching more bees than I did small hive beetles. Tracheal mites. Now, I couldn't find a lot on tracheal mites. They're obviously a parasite of the bee. Of course, bees don't have a trachea like we do. They have spiracles in their body that they breathe through, and the trachea tubes are from those. The only way you're going to know if you got tracheal mites is to send a sample off and have them tested under a microscope, dissected, and see if they're in there. One good thing about this is if you do have them and you're treating with for varroa mites, which we're gonna talk about here in a few minutes, and you're using formic acid will kill trachea mites as well. Or there, any of the mite treatments that have menthol in them. It will kill the trachea mites. Luckily, we don't have this one yet, and from the research I did on it, I don't think we're going to have it. It's a relatively new parasite to the honeybees. And I listened to them pronounce it just less than an hour ago. I'm gonna try to see if I can. It's Trophy-Leolaps, if I remember correctly. Like, I don't know if it was Danny Brewer that was first talked about it, or if it was Jacob when he was up here. I'm just gonna call him Trophy, or her Trophy, for short. Trophy was originally a parasite of Apis dorsata, an Asian honeybee that has started its transfer over in the last 50, 60 years to Apis mellifera, our western honeybee. The only thing is, it can only feed on the brood, and it can only go 2 or 3 days without eating, without having brood. So unless they find another host source around here for the winter, when our hives are broodless, we shouldn't get them. It's more of a tropical area pest. So we should have enough temperate climate that we shouldn't have to worry about them. There's one on a bee larva, or pupa. For size, it's a little bit smaller than a varroa mite. If this plays, this is a real short video. And it may be hard to see, but where was it? There, right there is one. There's one right there, and one. Watch how fast these little critters are. Yeah, I've never seen a varroa mite run that fast. Those things get around. And there's a size comparison between trophy and varroa mite. And so speaking of varroa mite, that brings us to our last one, varroa destructor. And there she is in all her glory. I'm sure we've all heard it before, but I know John Z's talked about it when he was up here. Imagine having a tick on you the size of your fist. That's the proportion of a varroa mite to a honeybee. Originally a parasite of Apis cerana, another Asian honeybee. Moved over to our European honeybee 50, 70 years ago, roughly. Over. One thing I read said that they thought it might have been in the Philippines, where somebody had both Apis cerana and Apis mellifera, had colonies of those in the same bee yard. How they can prove that, I don't know. First discovered in the U.S. in 87 in Wisconsin from bees that had shipped up from Florida for pollination. It wasn't long after that, within a few months, they were found in 10 other states. And since then, if you have a hive that you say doesn't have varroa mite in it, you're going to have to prove it to me. And I'm going to be like our neighbors to the state north of us. You're going to have to show me. I'm not going to believe you until you show me. Since then, they're in all states. They're in the whole beekeeping world, except for Australia, unless you've been listening to the news in the last couple of months. We can now mark that off there in Australia now. They've been found in the last couple of months. In the southeast part of the continent, they put up it was port of Loomis, maybe? They put up like a 10, 15 mile quarantine around that. Every bee colony in that, they're euthanizing. They're just gonna, you can't move bees in, and I think the next ring is like 50 miles. They have to be, like us, they have to be inspected before you can move them. And you pretty much have to have all the beekeepers in Australia now have to be registered before they can move hives. So the last bastion has fallen, to Varroa. It parasitizes both adult and larva stages of our bees. They're a vector for several diseases, one being deformed wing virus, also known as stick wing. Those bees don't make it very long, they can't ever fly, and they pretty well die at early death. Acute bee paralysis virus, parasitic mite syndrome, and there's a whole list of other things that they can vector diseases for. The life cycle of the Varroa destructor, it's 2 stages. Phoretic, the phoretic phase, which is the adult mites on adult bees. And I just found this one a while ago. These are the preferred locations of where they want to feed at on the bees, with the main one being the lower left side of the abdomen. They want to get in between those segments, because they can get in there and hide a little better. Some of our bees are developing hygienic behavior where they clean each other and clean the mites off. For the longest time, it was thought they fed on hemolymph, the bee's blood. But Dr. Samuel Ramsey in the last few years, PhD, I don't even know where he was at, here in the States, but I don't remember what university he's working with. Evidently there's a fat body right in that area in the abdomen, and that's where they're actually feeding off that fat body. So they're depleting the stores of the bees. The reason why they're thinking that's leading to a lot of the colony collapse disorder. They're trying to link the mite to the colony collapse disorder. The reproductive phase. Queen bee lays the egg. It's hard to see, but there's a phoretic mite there on the nurse bee. And I didn't know this until researching it. The larva actually produces a pheromone when it's time for its cell to be capped. So it tells the nurse bees when to cap the cell so it can pupate. The phoretic mites are smelling for that pheromone. That's how they know which hive to go in or which cell to go in right before it's capped. It's going to scurry down and get underneath it and hide until it is capped. Then this mite called the foundress, it's a mated female. She's gonna, after a certain amount of time, she's gonna start feeding on the larva, and about 70 hours after the cell is capped, she's gonna lay an egg. Just like our honeybees, she can determine whether she lays a fertilized egg or an unfertilized egg. The first one is always unfertilized, so it's gonna be a male. And then after that, after 30 hours, after that, she's gonna lay another egg, and those are gonna be fertilized, so those will become females. And then unless 2 or more foundresses get into the cell at the same time, that male then is gonna mate with the sisters. And once the adult bee emerges, the male stays in the hive or in the cell, and any unmated females stay in there. They never leave the cell. The mated female is on the bee, and to start the cycle over again. Worker brood produces 1 to 2 mites per bee. Drone brood produces 2 to 3 mites per bee. So that's why they enjoy the worker or the drone brood longer, because they've got more time, being the 24 days instead of the 21. Male, immature female, a young mature female, and then a foundress, the adult female, the mated female that leaves the hive of the cell. Just like our bees, their population follows kind of the same curve, except it's a little bit behind. And this right here is where we're at right about now. Our bee population's starting to decline, but the mite population's still on the increase. So routine counts are important. Like we've talked about doing counts and how to do them, and we've done them in field days, so I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on that. The Bee Informed Partnership recommends monthly counts. As a matter of fact, I saw just the other day when looking at this, they're having what they're calling their fall mite-a-thon, August 13th through 28th, the last 2 weeks of the month, where they're wanting people to get out and check their hives, check their numbers. And you can actually use, they have a mite check app where you can upload your information, none of your personal information. I mean, you don't, the only thing you shared is the county on their stuff. But they use that information to see where the heavy mite loads are in the whole country. And they actually have an app that you can download, it's free. It'll help you. It's got tutorials on checking for mites, on how to submit counts. It's even got, for doing your sugar shake roll or your alcohol wash, it's got a timer and it's got a trainer. It'll use your phone to basically the gyroscopic sensor in your phone, the motion sensor in your phone, to tell you whether you're shaking good enough for a minute. So that's a really good app to have. Again, the more information we have on them, the more we can combat them. The Honeybee Health Coalition, they've got a 29-page guide on varroa management. Sorry I didn't get a QR code up there for that. It's honeybeehealthcoalition.org/varroa. They go through a lot of treatments. They also have a decision-making tool on their website. It has 5 questions it asks. Do you have brood present or not? Are your mites at or above treatment threshold? Are you open to synthetic or just natural treatments? Is your bee population increasing or decreasing? And I don't remember what the 5th one is. You go through, you answer those questions, and then it will tell you all the stuff that's labeled to treat for mites. Based on your question and following that algorithm, it tells you what's available for you to use. And then you can go back to this, and all those treatments are listed and all the indications, the contraindications, the treatment, how to do the treatment, all that is listed in this guide. They've got a lot of other good stuff there on the Honeybee Health Coalition's webpage. They've got an 80-something page, the best hive practices, PDF, and all this is free. You can download. And there's a QR code for the decision tool if you want that. It downloaded as a PDF on my phone, but it's an interactive PDF. You can go through and answer the questions on your phone, and it will go through for you. That is all I have for tonight. I meant to bring, it's called a Mighty Mite Killer. With chemicals, mites can build resistance, because you're not going to kill every mite. You're going to have mites in the cells, cap cells, that aren't going to get the treatment into them. Other mites, you might not have enough of the treatment in there to kill them. For those that don't get killed, they're going to start building up resistance to the chemicals. They always say don't use the same chemical all the time. You want to rotate around different things. The Mighty Mite Killer is a thermal treatment. Mites can't live above 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Bees can live up to about 116, 117 degrees Fahrenheit. So what this is, it's basically a heating pad. It goes in on the bottom board, It's got a sensor, temperature sensor you put on top of the brood nest, with a foam board on top of that for insulation. You close the front of it up, the entrance up, you turn it on, it heats up to about 106 degrees. Then you remove the entrance or the reducer, the closure stick. The bees are gonna start bearding, and it's a 2-hour, once it gets to temperature, it's a 2-hour treatment. It keeps it, like I said, 106 degrees or so above that might kill temperature. There's been a study last year, I've not seen the results on it yet. They were asking for people to send pre-treatment samples and post-treatment samples, not only for mite counts, but just like our bodies, when we have a virus or a bug, we run a fever. They're thinking that maybe some of these viruses that are vectored from mites, that this might help those as well. They're wanting to do, with those samples, they're doing mite counts, but they're also doing virus counts as well. They're dissecting or extracting the viruses from the bees and seeing what virus load they had pre and post. Like I said, I haven't seen the results of those yet. Unfortunately, I got mine last March, 1st of April 2020, and the following week after mine came in, COVID shut them down. They have yet to be able, there's one of the electronic components they cannot get, and they have yet to be able to start back up manufacture. If you're foundationless frames, which I am, I've used it a couple of times, and I lost probably 3 or 4 frames at home. It got hot enough that I had some honey in some of the lower boxes as well as brood, and that honey got hot or got heavy enough that I had about 3 or 4 frames, about half the foam fell out. If you're on plastic foundation or plastic frames, it should work like a top. The first one I did, I don't remember what my counts were pre-treatment, but when I pulled the board out, I had almost 50 mites dead on the board. So, but that's.
So does Arizona have less problems with mice?
No, because the bees.
It gets up to 108.
But the bees keep the hive air conditioned. They keep air moving, and they keep it at 93, 95 degrees. They're fanning air in and out, keeping it cool, and bringing water in for evaporative cooling. So yeah, unfortunately, the bees weren't so good at climate control, but yes, it would. So Jamie's saying wrap it up. It's I heard a beep while ago, almost after 8 o'clock. Got 50-50, and so while she's working on drawing that, I'm gonna go ahead and shut our live stream down.